Hello, bird nerds. How you going? I'm Grant. I'm a bird nerd. This is Loz. He's my co-host for today. Today we're talking cockatoos. Cockatoos and other large seed eaters and fruit eaters and bringing them into the garden. Now, I've been doing a lot of reading and there is a lot of information out there about cockatoos. Loz, by the way, has decided that he really likes my beard, and the little hairs up here too, by the way, on the sides. I'm not sure if a lot of the information that's out there is not just people regurgitating and reworking what's been put out there before. But I think the golden rules for attracting cockatoos, or let me look at the camera, would be good, are pretty simple, and we'll get into them in a minute. What I would like for you to do this morning, just we'll try and get into this habit, please. If you're in the comments, and Instagram, I'll let you know. I have to keep swapping out to look at your comments. If you're on Instagram, hello, good morning. I'm Grant. I'm a bird nerd. I will keep looking. I can see that, Glenn was. Oh, Instagram's a long way behind too, by the way. I could see Glenn was in there on Instagram. I'm hoping that Glenn has come across to Facebook. There was a glitch apparently this morning with Facebook, so hopefully everything is fine. Please, if you do have any issues with hearing or seeing something, let me know and we'll see if we can quickly workshop it. We're off to Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube and Facebook this morning. I've had some requests to go to some of the other platforms like Kick and Rumble. The right wing. You can't have caffeines. Caffeine's very bad for you. So come back over here. All right, let's see. Martin, good morning. Martin's in Gladstone. How's the cyclone? You're a little bit south of where it hit, Martin, but if you want to give us any kind of update, what kind of damage? I saw it was pretty rugged in the Townsville region. Hopefully it wasn't too bad. Folks, we can kind of talk about that for a minute, about natural disasters. Every time there's a natural disaster like a flood or a cyclone or a fire, it's going to damage either feeding resources for birds or nesting habitat for birds. And we can help in the short term by providing additional food if possible. And if it's a matter of nesting habitat has disappeared, we can do the best that we can to provide some alternatives. And good morning, Naomi. How are you? Regular members of the Riot Squad, Martin and Naomi, here. Even though it's not the best solution, you can provide artificial hollows. I have some guests coming up to talk further about that. I mean, we've covered in the bird emergency artificial hollows a lot, but it's something I'm going to keep going back to because there's always advances in what's available, and people are learning all the time about what birds will use what type of hollows. So we'll get more into that. Let's see, who else have we got on here? So I know Naomi's on Facebook, Martin's on YouTube. Hello, X/Twitter. Let us know where you are, what you're doing today. Martin says about the cyclone up in North Queensland. I like to call it South North Queensland or North Central Queensland. Uh, when you get to Townsville, it feels like it's a long way north, and it is. But there's an awful lot further north you can go. So, yeah, Queensland's a big state. Loz, do you want an update on Loz? What can I tell you? Loz is getting happier and noisier and chattier and more active by the day. So I'm sure that's got to do with the condition that he was in when he arrived. I'm sure he was, he, she, it was pretty out of condition. Loz loves banana. Absolutely loves banana. Yeah, that's what I'm discovering about Loz. Absolutely loves banana. Here we go. He's going to get interested. Oh, he obviously likes headphones as well. Now he's getting back into my hair. Good on you, Loz. Look, if I give him a beard, he'll be right there. Oh, no, preening. Okay. I'm going to play a couple of videos. I haven't watched these yet, so this might be... this might be a worry. But one of them's from years ago. Where are we? YouTube. I've got to find the YouTube one. So this is a Burke's Backyard from 2015 about glossies. Let's go back, Don. Now, sorry. I've done it again. Stop. Come back. I've got him up there on full screen. Now I'll bring him in. Now, I'm not endorsing or condoning the alleged behaviour of Don Burke. What I will say about Don Burke, when I was a young and aspiring horticulturist, Don Burke's book on grevilleas got me really into horticulture, growing grevilleas, grafting grevilleas, selecting grevilleas. And I think, well, he was a pretty good horticulturist. I'm going to just go there. I'm not sure he was a really good bloke. But let's have a watch and a listen. This is about glossy black cockatoos, and one of the reasons I wanted to focus on cockatoos was to talk particularly about glossy black cockatoos and Carnaby's black cockatoo, because they're becoming increasingly rare and, you know, on the precipice when we're talking about Carnaby's, and increasingly gangs are under pressure. So we'll sort of focus on those three. Also, if you've got cockatoos at home coming into your garden or relatives' gardens or something, pop it in the comments. Let's talk about real world experiences, and we'll go from there. But here's Don Burke. It's only a minute and a half, so.
If you have a garden full of wonderful native plants, you get some fabulous moments. None more fabulous than this. This is a rare and endangered bird that is over my head. This is the glossy black cockatoo. This pair have been here in our garden for about 25 years that we've seen them. Every year they have one baby. The male is the one on the right, where he's basically all black and he's got a red tail. And the girl is on the left, and she's got the same red tail, but she's got a lot of yellow around her head. These are not yellow-tailed cockatoos, these are glossy black cockatoos. Rare and endangered over almost all of Australia, and just gone from a lot of areas. But what a fabulous privilege to share your garden with stunning creatures like that. And the only way you could ever do it is if you plant she oaks, particularly they're casuarinas. Casuarina littoralis is maybe the best one. But look, any of the casuarinas will do, but they only eat the little nuts on casuarinas. One last point. These birds have the most beautiful personality. We've got a film crew here, and we're all wandering around and doing all sorts of things, and they're just sitting there eating their dinner. You can actually go up quite close to them, and they don't mind. Beautiful birds. If you're trying to remember that name, it is the glossy black cockatoo, and they eat casuarina seeds from the little cones, if you like, that the seeds are in.
$83 million.
Let's go back.
That's the headline.
Now, what I want to do, I want to go back, if I can. How do I go back? That's good news, by the way. Trump getting hit with $83 million. Let's go back to this one for a minute.
If you have a
And I'm
garden
going to
full of
freeze on a
wonderful native plants,
frame.
you get some fabulous moments.
Actually, here's a good
None
one.
more fabulous.
Can you see in the top right-hand corner, see this open Banksia? Shadow. Obviously, the neighbour's dog is out. That's Banksia roba, I believe. And you can see the cones there. That's another good one for some cockatoos. I used to have Banksia roba, and it likes wet spots. Shadow, quiet. Anyway, that was the point of pulling that frame up again. Let's pull that out. So, Don Burke made one point that I really did want to hammer home. When we talk about bird attracting and habitat gardens, people always leap to grevilleas, banksias, the showy flowers. We need to remember that some of the plants that are not the rock stars of the horticultural world are the really important ones to be putting into your garden. Now, she oaks, generic term, and that was that littoralis? I think he was talking about the black she oak. There are many that are recommended for cockatoos. Torullosa, which is the rose she oak. Verticillata, glauca. Whatever is available in your nursery, I would say give it a go. She oaks are also an easy one to grow if you can procure the seed. So if your local Indigenous plant network or local Indigenous nursery has seed available, give it a go. They're really easy to strike. Very fine seed, so you do need to put a bit of protection like some vermiculite or perlite over the top when you've sown the seed, but they do strike readily and they're fairly fast growing. So if you have a fair bit of space, plant a grove. Don't plant one or two. Plant 10 or 12 close together. And if need be, you can thin them out later on. But give them an opportunity to grow as a copse, as a thicket, because she oaks need male and females. They're dioecious species or dioecious family. Some are very large, but again, you can manage them if they're getting too big. Start growing some more and then thin the really big ones. I mean, this is all about the right plant for the right place. But there are small she oaks that you can grow, and there's not a lot of literature about which cockatoos are eating which species. But give it a go. Now, Martin, comment. What's the one that is quite dense, tall, with a rounded top? Okay. Where was the farm, Martin? Oh, rounded top tends to... forest she oak, to me, I think is more of a pointy one. That's also the same. I think forest she oak is also a synonym for the rose she oak, which is torullosa. I'm just going to have a look at my. Bear with me. I'm just going to have a look at my common names for casuarinas and aloe casuarinas. Okay, I'm not seeing. Oh, for actually for Queensland, Equisetifolia is a really good one. That's a drooping one. Okay, let's check out the aloe casuarinas. I'm not seeing a forest she oak. I'll look it up in the. So I try not to use common names unless I know that it's the only one. Okay, they're I'm going to defer to Dr. Google, or Professor Google. Good on you, Loz. Where you going? There we are. Torullosa, which is what I was calling the rose she oak. So yeah, definitely that's really readily available in nurseries. Great street tree. Oh, Loz wants to eat the book. So yeah, you shouldn't have any trouble getting hold of that, Martin, and it's quite quick growing. So, what are you doing there? There's for inland, I would be going Casuarina cristata. That is a sort of drier country plant. Cunninghamiana is another one that you see in nurseries a lot. Torullosa, you'll see stricta. Get closer to the mic, Grant. Glauca is a smaller one. That's why I would talk about that. Same with Humulus is another small small she oak for smaller places. Do you want a piece of banana? Will that keep you happy? Let me. Hope you don't mind. I'm just going to break off a bit of banana for Loz because he loves banana, and that might keep him out of my face for a minute. Yeah, you know what's coming, don't you? All right. I'll put that over here, and you can eat it over here. Here you are. Hey, here you are. Look, banana. There we are. So I've got a. So Loz is in luxury here. He's got a perch over here, on this side. I've got his cage over here, which has got eucalyptus blossom in it, and his little treat bar, and his apples, and his stuff. Everything else. Oh no, yeah. Of course, you only like the banana that I've got in my hand, don't you? All right, I'll put it here, and you can choose whether you want to go there. Okay. All right, where was I? Sorry, folks, getting distracted. By the way, let me know. Should I lose Loz as a co-host for these shows? Okay, Martin says, so just west of Maryborough. Must have been old. I've never seen one before. Okay, Martin, that I would say would probably be remnant, a remnant from the old days. But there's plenty of Casuarina or Aloe Casuarina torullosa out there in the nursery trade. So get onto that. But let's. Now, what's this one? I'm going to play another YouTube, and this is about carnabies, and we'll vote for a vote for Loz. Good on you, Naomi. I get distracted, so I just don't want to be getting you all waffling and carrying on. Okay. Where's my other YouTube? Here we are, attracting carnabies.
I'm in Banksia Woodland in the north
Hang on.
of Perth, in a suburb called Ballajura, and this is favourite feeding ground of the endangered Carnaby's cockatoo.
This is a Gardening Australia one. 7 minutes. We'll play the whole thing. Hey, we'll play the whole thing. It's by Josh, who I think is really good in. There we are. Now, this will give you an idea of the habitat that Carnaby's lives in Western Australia. So, again, if you're in Eastern Australia, where Carnaby's doesn't live, we do have black cockatoos here, and yellow-tailed black cockatoos and red-tailed black cockatoos have similar needs. The species will be different, and I don't even know which Banksias he's going to talk about in this, but I will run through some Banksias in a short while that you should look out for. Again, that are easily available. Not all of them are easily available, but we will get into that. So here's Josh talking about Carnaby's cockatoos in the garden. Really useful. I hadn't seen that before. Oh, Loz, you're throwing your banana at me. Sorry. Here, have it there. Really useful. Now, Banksia attenuata fills the kind of role that Banksia serrata. There we are. It's Astraque. I don't know. You can correct me on the pronunciation. How are you? Nice to see you. This is Loz. Loz is my co-host, and Loz turned up here on New Year's Eve, and just turned up out the front, and been looking after him ever since. He's now the co-host, or he or she, until the DNA testing is done. I do not know whether it's a he or a she, but a rainbow lorikeet. Loz, I don't want mushy banana on my shirt. Thank you. Okay, so Banksia serrata and any of the Pinky, how are you? Welcome to the Riot Squad. I'll tell you why it's the Riot Squad. I'll bore everyone else who's heard this before. The collective noun for a group of kookaburras is a riot, the same as a parliament is a group of owls. And the regular commenters are the Riot Squad. So welcome. Nice to have you here. Especially on Twitch. I love Twitch, but we don't get many comments from Twitch apart from stupid ones. We get lots of stupid stuff from Twitch. Okay. Let's get back into where I was going. So one of the I did notice a couple of things in that story that we can draw out to apply to all of the country. They talked about macadamia nuts, okay, and pecan nuts in the garden. Well, anything big and nut-like. Over here in Melbourne, there's a plant in the Botanic Gardens called Floydia. The Floydia is a very close relative of the macadamia, and the macadamia is in the Proteaceae family, which includes Banksias, Grevilleas, Hakeas, Proteas, whatnot. So you get there's that cool bubble. That's got to be from. Is that from Twitch? Martin, has YouTube YouTube's showing fine on the dashboard. Let me know. Let me know. Let me know. Martin's on Facebook now. I've still got people who are apparently watching on YouTube. Oh, look at this. Oh, sorry, I thought there was. Anyway, do let me know if there's things like that. YouTube is showing as being fine. Maybe I'll just bring that out. All right, let's get back to what I was saying. You can plant all sorts of things like macadamias, Floydias, any large nuts, Brazil nuts, almonds, anything like that will bring cockatoos in because they love those fleshy, high-value foods. And they've obviously got the beak, the weapon, to get access to them. What I would say, if you're going to plant something like an almond, just be prepared for lots of birds to turn up and take all your almonds. If you're planting them as a food for you, you're going to be in conflict with the birds. Just plant enough so that, let the birds have them. That would be my view. I noticed in that street behind Josh when he was doing his final piece to camera, behind him was an eastern state wattle, Acacia baileyana, was the bluish form, which is a horticultural cultivar. Now, most cockatoos will get into that. The yellow-tailed black cockatoos that I used to have at my place in East Gippsland used to visit the Cootamundra wattles, the blue form, when it was setting seed. I know I've mentioned before that the Acacia podalirifolia, the Mount Morgan wattle, was also a favourite. Naomi, you've seen the yellow-tailed black cockatoos on candlestick banksias here. Seen glossy black eating casuarina with a very big cone. Plant almonds, macadamias, and figs. Yes, I do love figs. That's a very good suggestion. The two banksias that Josh mentioned, attenuata, which is the candlestick banksia, that's a very big tree. If you don't have a lot of big space, there are a couple of sort of equivalents, West Australians equivalents, and I would say Banksia praemorsa would be the first one I would go for. Big yellow cone. It's a terminal cone, so the more you prune the plant, so if you bring, every time it throws off a shoot, go to maybe the second or third bud and prune it again, and then it will throw more. And on each one of those terminal spikes, that's where you'll get a flower. And so many of the Banksias are like that. Banksia menziesii was the other one they showed. Now, menziesii is a really beautiful looking Banksia. Grows in the eastern states about 4 metres is sort of average. But there's equivalents to that that will grow well here. Hi, Janice. I'm just very interested. I think now that he's had a bit of a high energy chew with the Banksy, he'll be asleep in a moment. This is what I don't know if all lorikeets do this, but Loz eats like crazy, goes to sleep for half an hour, and then eats like crazy, goes to sleep for half an hour. Lorikeets, if you give them so much of the wet food, like the syrupy, nectary liquid, they're very messy, but they can get the same food value if you dust the fruit. The fruits that I'm giving him with the balanced lorikeet mix. It's far less messy, so that's what I'm doing. I'm rotating what he gets so he's not bored. But his favourite is still the Granny Smith apple. Granny Smith apple and banana are still his favourites. And pear, but he'll take a Granny Smith over a pear any day. I noticed that the Carnabies were also hoeing into a plant that Josh didn't mention. But this is where you can always find substitutes for the garden. Kunzia baxteri was there. Now has a big red showy bottle brush type flower, but sets woody knobby seeds like the callistemons do along the branch. And obviously the Carnabies were getting into that. Kunzia baxteri is a West Australian, but it's grown all over Australia. It's very, very adaptable and reliable garden shrub, and can handle really like hard pruning. So you can keep it in check. It's another one of these, or if you do a tip prune, it will throw out maybe 10 new shoots. So you can thin it out, and the flowers appear on last season's wood. So just as the wood hardens, that's where the flowers will appear. So regular tip pruning gives you more flowers. That's a fun bit of horticulture, is how you can encourage plants to give you what you want. Have I got any coffee left? No, finished. Might have to have an intermission. I feel like I'm going to need to have another coffee. Look, Loz is just about to hit the sack again, I think. What else did I want to say about these plants? Oh, other plants that cockatoos tend to love that are often ignored are any of the hakeas. Martin makes a very good point. I will say most grevilleas do really well with a prune. Some like regular tip prunes. Some like a really severe prune, maybe every 2 or 3 years. We can talk about that in a later episode like that. You can always put in questions and whatnot, but most grevilleas that are commonly found in gardens, especially on the East Coast, like regular tip pruning. That's why so many of them are really good to be shaped. Like, one of the reasons Grevillea rosmarinifolia was so popular in the 60s and 70s was you could just regularly prune it. You could do the hedge clipping kind of method that so many gardeners were familiar with from back then, and it would respond really well. Grevillea scheresii, which is one I always talk about as being a favourite for me, that loves that kind of pruning, and you can clip it with wedge hedge clippers if you want to. Any of the hakeas with nice woody fruits, cockatoos will tend to be attracted to. And the researcher there made the point that cockatoos have really good geospatial awareness. So once they have got a mind map of an area and they know what's available, they keep returning. So the longevity of your plants, and this is where I didn't really want to wander off into this quite so much, but this is one of those problems that the way we move nowadays causes a problem. We talked about this in lots of the episodes with Holly before about fragmentation and whatnot, but what tends to happen when someone buys a house in your street? Just think about it. What happens? What's the first thing they do? Anyone? While we're waiting, I'll just go over to Instagram. On Instagram, You know, on Instagram, they're still watching. Oh, they've only just finished watching the video. That's a long delay, isn't it? And hi, Fran, on Instagram. Wow, that is a long delay. I'm not sure that Instagram is really. I don't know about simulcasting or simul broadcasting or whatever we call it. Simul streaming with such a large delay is really worth going. Yeah, Janice has got it in one. The first thing they do is tend to destroy the garden because they want to put their own stamp on the garden. And this is what I've sort of talked about. Yeah, Naomi, there we are. They chose the garden to their likes. That's right. Which is why I think we need to be a bit more sophisticated in urban planning and about significant trees and significant plants. So I don't know. I really wish people would still hang on to where they live for 15 or 20 years so that a garden can mature and then the animals and the birds can reap the benefit of that continued ownership. But, you know, we've got an economic system in Australia which is really bound to people buying and selling property. Their wealth and their growth in wealth seems to be tied to ever increasing the type of property they own. Yeah, so it's one of the reasons why I'm increasingly thinking about what you can grow in containers in a small plants, smaller plants that can have positive benefits for wildlife species. But there was a key point in that video from Gardening Australia about one that the cockatoos need large trees. And we talked about this, was it last week or the week before, where I talked about how they need like a sentinel post. And often you see it as being dead trees where they can alight and they can look around and they can scout out the area. But those carnabies in Perth are roosting in non-native or non-indigenous plants, not West Australia, not Perth local species. And although it was only one little part of that conversation where they talked about the birds preferring that species, I would contend that the birds don't give a stuff about the species. I think it's about the size of the tree and the location, the situation of the tree. I think that's what the birds are picking. I don't think they're going, oh, that's a, whichever. That's a eucalyptus or a Corymbia citriodora. We'll go and roost in that. I think it is more about where that plant is situated in the landscape and what it offers the birds because of where it is. That's why we grizzle so much about people taking large trees out of gardens when they buy a property. I mean, this street was changed forever when a couple of large eucalypts and large lily pillies and Grevillea robustus, silky oaks, were removed. The bottom end of the street now has nowhere for large birds to land and have a look around. So consequently, I'm just not seeing them down there. Martin says, spent 9 years planting trees on an old farm. Really encouraged the planting of casuarinas. Yeah, casuarinas are great because they grow fast. I would also say hakeas often grow fast. Melaleucas often grow fast. And you can plant some, fast growing. Well, maybe that's a topic for maybe the next one will be really fast growing plants to build a backbone, a structure for your garden. 3 meters growth in 18 months. Yeah, I reckon that's about average. And yeah, they're shelter trees for other trees. That is where I just mentioned hakeas. Wattles are the next really important group of plants that you want to consider because of this issue that Martin has just mentioned. Often wattles are very quick growing, especially when you talk about black wattle, silver wattle. They can get up really. What are we talking about? Mearnsii, Acacia mearnsii, Acacia dealbata. They're going to be different varieties in the west, or different species in the west, but often they will be quite what I would call a light tree. Like they're quite quick growing, slim, slender, spindly, but they do offer some protection for everything below as they're coming through. And that means they can be easily thinned out if you need to. So I would really encourage growing them. All of the seed-eating plants love wattle seeds. And then you can plant sort of slower growing, more robust wattle tree species if you want. But then you've got all of the shrub wattles that you can also plant. And there's so many. I really don't like mentioning any of the species names, because all you need to do is go to your nursery and see what they've got, or look on online catalogues and see what's available. Part of the problem with doing this kind of spot is we're trying to talk about everywhere, so we've got to talk in concept. We've got to talk in the role the role that species plays in the garden, or that variety plays in the garden, rather than saying get this type of Banksia or Grevillea or whatever. Martin, it looks like YouTube's back all right, is it? Because you're back. All right, hakeas. Anything with the big woody seed, the big woody cone. Yeah. Casuarinas, wattles, they will handle those exposed rough spots. I don't know where you were back then, Martin, but I can say that the Acacia podalirifolia is a great colonising plant for exposed sites. It's often used in mine rehabilitation. There's so many of them. Let's see. Where am I now? Mentioned a few of the Banksias. I think any Banksia with large woody fruits will bring in cockatoos. On the east coast, you've got Banksia integrifolia, you've got Banksia serrata. Going further north, the Hinchinbrook Banksias. There's just lots and lots that you can get into. Now I want to throw it open to you to tell me, what cockatoos are you getting in your garden, or what cockatoos do you want to get in your garden? And you're going to need to tell me where you are or what you have done, and let's see if we can workshop some of those issues while Loz has a bit of a nap. Now, Naomi, thank you for preempting this. Now, in that ABC video, there was a note about that sometimes particular plants are an environmental weed in your area. Wattles, particularly because they are so good at colonising areas, may become an environmental weed. And in fact, anything might become an environmental weed. I mean, lantana is a beautiful garden shrub, right? But obviously shouldn't have been grown in some areas. Some of the leptospermums can get out of out of hand. I might know it too. Leptospermum or tea trees often bring in cockatoos too. I know that corellas and galahs and yellow-tailed black cockatoos will often get into Leptospermum squirosum, I think, the swamp tea tree. Used to see that in used to see them in East Gippsland. I'll share my experience of what the local sulphur-crested cockatoos have been doing down here. The street trees, the really large street trees around this park, I think are Eucalyptus botryoides. And it's not a local eucalypt, but when it has finished its flowering, which is now, and I think it's shedding the seed from last year. I'd have to check, but I think this is how it's working. It's either dropping seed capsules or seed from last year because it's only just finished flowering, and like as in the last few days here. But for the last few weeks, the cockatoos have been below these real big mature eucalypts and foraging on the ground. They're not in the park ripping up roots, which is what they'll often do at other times of the year. They're foraging on the ground and picking up small gum nuts, seed capsules, and chewing on them. Each gum nut, seed capsule, is packed full of tiny little eucalypt seeds, but they gorge on them. So again, the value of mature trees. I mean, these trees are 30 or 40 years old. Probably longer. I mean, I've been living here for, I think, 10 years. They're probably 50, 60 years old. That would make them planted in the... they probably were planted in the 70s, maybe the late 60s. Probably 70s would be my guess. So what decisions do you need to make for your place? Well, how long have you got? Like, how long do you think you're going to be there? That's one consideration. Can you plant? I mean, this is a bit of guerrilla gardening. I was thinking about this the other day, actually. Can you plant in public areas plants that maybe the council or the land manager are not planting that may offer some benefit? And I think this is a time when you would consider indigenous plants or plants that are in the suite of plants that the local managers are using. Just give them a few freebies. But that's a bit more difficult because sometimes what they're doing might be in direct conflict with what you're trying to do, and then your efforts might just be wasted because I'll just rip them out. But maybe, different issue. Let's leave that alone. Can you... Well, I was hoping more of you would be talking about... Oh, here we go. Naomi's got something in about what she's seen. This is what I was hoping we'd get. Seeing gangangs feeding on wattle seeds and cotoneasters. Yeah, look, cotoneasters and hawthorns are really popular with gangangs. I know in eastern Melbourne, cotoneasters and hawthorn bushes are major food sources for gangangs when they are flowering, when they are setting fruits. And sulphur-crested cockatoos on elms and pines. They will eat them. I see rainbow lorikeets and I've seen the corellas here on the immature cones of a number of decorative cypress and junipers, all sorts of conifers. Now, cockatoos are smart and they're adaptable. And if that's what is there, that's what they will eat. Think about what gangangs and other cockatoos and parrots that love cotoneasters would have eaten, and hawthorns in the past. And my thoughts would be things like solanum, like the kangaroo apple, Ballardieri, a little light climber, glycine climber, that has little fruits. Solanum's the kangaroo apples. A lot of varieties that you can find, indigenous, quick growing, love to grow after fire. They spring up everywhere. I would probably think that even these things like Canedias and Hardenbergias, even though they're a different kind of seeding plant, I'm sure they offer some value. I've seen cockatoos on all sorts of Asteraceae and the noon flower, like the pig face on the on where it's being used as erosion control on slopes. I've seen them on Myoporum berries, Myoporum or the boobiellas. They set fleshy drupes and fruits. So I think a lot of these plants would be good, acceptable, but the cotoneasters and the hawthorns are obviously very high food value. I'm sure they like cherries. I'm sure they love cherries, but we don't get them. We don't get them into it. And here Naomi says, seen gangs in tomato veggie patch. Yeah, I've read contradictory reports about whether tomatoes are actually a cumulative poison for parrots. So I don't know, but I have seen reports about that. I don't let Loz, for instance, no onions, and I don't let Loz eat tomatoes, and also avocados. Parrots should not be eating avocado. They cannot. It's a cumulative poison. They can't break down the poisons in avocados. We can actually metabolize them, but parrots can't. So yeah, be careful about that. What else did we have? Yeah. Janice. Seen yellow-tailed black cockatoos gorging on pine cones. Yeah. They're a really significant food source for some of the red-tailed black cockatoos in Western Victoria, and I'm sure in other parts of Australia. Generally, it's Pinus radiata, which is the common one. Pine nuts are a high-value food source. You think about when you're using pine nuts in pesto or something, that's a high-value oily food. Same as sunflower seeds. The cockatoos, when I feed them in the park, they will pick out the high-value seeds, the grey and black sunflowers, because that's what they want. They want to get the highest food value for doing the least bit of work, right? So, So all of the cockatoos will pick out those, as indeed will parrots. Any parrots will prefer sunflower seeds if they're there, unless they're budgies and they love millet. Flax seeds as well, like the dark flax seeds. Martin's seen red-tailed and yellow-tailed on large coastal Banksia. Yeah, Banksia integrifolia is one that I've seen all the cockatoos getting into around here. There's only one large Banksia integrifolia nearby here, and it is visited regularly. I think the bigger cockatoos, I think the black cockatoos like the um, uh, uh, like the serrata. They're much harder for the smaller cockatoos to get into. Let's see, acacias and casuarinas. Yeah, Martin, I would agree. I don't often see sulphur-crested cockatoos ripping into any of those. I think the sulphur-cresteds are more likely to be on the eucalypt cones or the corimbia cone capsules, fruit capsules. I think you're right. Janice says she's seeing that behaviour at Helensvale. Yep. And also think about all these areas where we're seeing cockatoos eating these exotic food sources. Is there much remnant vegetation around? And I think the answer is going to be no. Their preferred food is not there, so they're finding something else to eat. Yeah. I'm sure they weren't planted for cockatoo food either, Naomi says about the tomatoes. I think it's the seeds that are the problem, Naomi. So it may be okay if they're only getting into the flesh. I may be wrong, but I think that is the point. I might add too, from what I've read too, if you are putting fruit out for visiting cockatoos and parrots, it's a good idea, a varied diet. Apple and pear seeds, and I'm guessing pretty much they're in the Rosaceae family, so they're actually related to roses. So are almonds, by the way. Apparently the seeds of apples and pears again have a build-up of, I think it's a cyanide or related to cyanide, that the birds cannot metabolize. So if you're putting out fruit for birds, be on the safe side. Cut your apples into slices that don't include the core, the seeds. I would say the same with pear. I cut them off and then hang them on some wire so the loz can pull them apart. Best to be on the safe side would be my thought there. Yeah, let me just go over to Instagram and see what's happening in Instagram. Nothing. Instagram's a bit of a comment desert, but they are like a few minutes behind. That's not surprising. Let me ask you, are any of you doing anything particularly for cockatoos / large parrots? And if not, are you thinking about doing it? I'm currently not feeding the cockatoos around here because I don't think they require it. I think when the large eucalypts around here have sort of finished, I'll assess it again. Now, what's Naomi got to say here? There's remnant bush around, but the flowering plants can be guarded by New Holland honeyeater, little and red wattlebirds, and seen the sulphur-cresteds eating the ornamental plums and cherries. Yeah, well, they love, again, it's high-value food, high in sugar. It was interesting to see, wasn't it, that Josh in the ABC thing talked about the cockatoos getting into Banksias and eating the flowers, and I've seen that too. I've seen them pulling apart flower cones just to get into the nectar. Something else I read about gangs, and I don't have gangangs here, so I can't say I've ever seen this, but apparently they love eating the larva of sawflies. Now, you know the spitfires that, well, I haven't seen for years, but I remember when I was younger, you'd see the sort of black caterpillars hanging in groups on the edge of eucalypt branches. They would, apparently that's something that gangangs love. Let me know if that's something that you have seen. Martin, with the spaces you've got, you could try some of the smaller varieties, and I'd be thinking about the upright fastigiate varieties for you, Martin. And there are some Banksias that I think you could try. Praemorsa would be one. There's also a fastigiata variety of Banksia integrifolia, and I think of serrata. I'll look it up and let you know if they're still being. Well, it's good. 5 or 10 years ago, that I would say. Let's have a look. Let's have some plants. Some plants for cockatoos and casuarinas. Martin, this is an interesting thing too about living in shared spaces, flats, apartments, strata titles and all that kind of stuff. Martin, are they regulating what you can grow in a pot? Because a lot of these things you can grow in a large pot or a tub. Let's investigate that. Naomi says, oh yes, Naomi's seen gangangs eating grubs. And they really go for it. I've also seen yellow-tailed black cockatoos eating grubs and digging for them with their beaks. Cockatoos, especially black cockatoos, will destroy trees to get to what we have called in the past witchetty grubs, any of the big borer grubs, beetle grubs. For sure they will do that. Sulfur cressids will get into that. Oh, here's an interesting one. I was going to talk about cockatoos, sulfur cressid cockatoos particularly, that got a taste for some softwoods that are used in building products and ripping window frames and balconies and wood cladding apart. And I think if they get a taste for something, you can't dissuade them. Best thing to do is give them something better to eat, I would be thinking. Now, Janice, what have you got for us here? I've seen sulfur crested cockatoos going nuts over the large white bloom coming out of the agave. I've got no doubt that I'm not sure which agave it is. There's lots of agaves around here, and I haven't seen any of the cockatoos or even any of the parrots attacking the agave flower spikes here. But I would imagine that if they'd learned that they were good tucker, they would get into it. I can't see why not. I've seen galahs that were coming into a garden of someone I knew who also had lots of hanging baskets of zygocactus. They used to get into the zygocactus just as they flowered. They would eat the flowers. So they're adaptable foragers, no doubt about it. There were some other things that came out of the video from Gardening Australia with Josh. Cockatoos are big birds and they need a graduated slope down to the water for them to visit ponds. No steep sides. bird baths are a really good option, but they do need to visit a water source at least once a day, probably twice a day. But I'm pretty sure when they do their morning drinking, many people don't see them. The cockatoos here and the corellas go to a big puddle where the roots of one of the large eucalypts have lifted the road, and there's a crack in the drainage on the curb. There's regularly a really large shallow puddle, and that's where they prefer to go and get the water. It's a large puddle, maybe, I don't know, at the deepest spot, maybe 5-7 centimetres deep. And after rain, there's a lot of water. And after rain, they're all there. That's where they come first thing in the morning. And they will go there in the evenings if, not so often this time of year, where in the late evening, people are coming home and there's cars driving along there. But as the afternoons get shorter, the evenings get shorter, they'll pop in there too. What else would you like to talk about? We didn't even get talking about nest boxes and things like that, because I think the first thing is you need to get the cockatoos need to learn that there will be food, and if you start feeding, you've got to keep feeding. If you break the habit, they will learn for somewhere else, and they will just learn somewhere else and go there. Naomi has seen gangs dinking on a bike. No, I know, just left out a thing. Drinking from a puddle in preference to a running stream. Yeah, I think birds prefer still water to running water. Yeah, and early in the morning. Yeah, they come out early before they go off foraging for food. It's pretty much the first thing they do. They wake up, they socialise, they go and get water, and then they go feeding and socialising. Now, I can tell you, Naomi, that pink cockatoos, the Major Mitchell cockatoo, the pink cockatoos eat a lot of she oak and acacia seed. I'm going to just Google that. Let's have a look. I'm sure the University of South Australia or something. Let's have a look. Nature Australia has got a fact sheet. I'll get to that in a bit. Very generic. Fruits, nuts, roots, plants, seeds and bulbs, but also insects. Here we are. There's a couple that I think are going to be useful. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at what Mallee Conservation. Is that Mallee Conservation? This one. Okay, Mallee Conservation have a pair of pink cockatoos that visit regularly. In winter 2021, for the first time on our property, we saw a huge mob of 53 birds. It was actually a mob of 29, followed by a mob of 24 a few minutes later. They were cruising around and checking out our native pine trees. Okay, the native pine is Calitris. So, let's see what they say. Okay, so, first hand from the Mallee Conservation Group, and we'll talk about where they are in a minute. This is what they are seeing. They're eating the seeds of various grasses, including the introduced barley grass, wattles, and native pine. Native pine is calitris. Their favourite, according to this website, is Calitris gracilis. And they plant a lot of pine. I would prefer to call them cypress pine, which is how you'll see them tagged in nurseries. Cypress pine. It also will, over time, provide nesting hollows. Now, here's something that I don't know if you've ever watched any of the panel discussions where we've talked about hollows. Here we are. Mallee Conservation are playing the long game. Pairs of pink cockatoos prefer their hollows in pine trees or native pine, Calitris gracilis, that are about 170 years old. That is indeed the long game. I'm going to share this. I'll share this because there's a good photo here. Bear with me. Share screen. And let's come up, bring it up to the stage. Okay. So you can see they're biting into the seeds. So they take about half of the cone. So these are shots from Mallee Conservation. Let's have a look at the YouTube video that they've got. Okay, so that sort of highlights what I was saying about the dead tall sentinel plant. That's something I've noticed. Cockatoos and raptors love that. So there we are. Calitris, what was it? Gracilis, wasn't it? Yeah, Calitris gracilis. And if I look up Calitris gracilis, and I would imagine that there are going to be other Calitris that will do the job. It's going to depend on what is the local one. Let me put the glasses on so that I can actually read the fine print in my favourite little Ready Recna. Calitris gracilis is actually not in. It's not actually in this book. Columularis is the one that you will find mostly in nurseries, but there is many. I'll look up more on that, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 that are commonly in cultivation, but I'm just going to look this one up again. And see if it's in any nursery catalogues. Calitris gracilis is known as the slender cypress pine, and I'm seeing it being a synonym with Calitris presii, the southern cypress pine, which looks to be native pine that occurs naturally in most states in Victoria. So it's a mallee pine. So yeah, I think if you're looking for gracilis or presii, it's the same plant. It's available as tube stock. I'm seeing it so as Calitris gracilis in some catalogues that I'm looking at. Slender cypress pine. There's a subspecies for New South Wales and Victoria Murray region, subspecies murrayensis. Okay. It's the dark grey one, not the bluey one. So, okay. Very, very, very available. So I won't share all of those. Cypress pine was indeed used for timber, a very, very common inland timber. You'll find a lot of bridges and a lot of... Hello, Yonachi. Yeah, I'm thinking Yonachi is who is there on Instagram. I don't know whether they're still there. Yeah, a lot of bridges, a lot of reclaimed timber, cypress pine, a lot of fence posts. I think a lot of this habitat is now just fence posts around southeastern and inland Australia. Crazy to think. And it's a very hard and durable timber. So a lot of housing stumps were Calitris pine, native cypress pine. So yeah. Okay, folks, we've gone a bit longer than I expected we would. So let's recap. If you're lucky enough to have pink cockatoos in your area, go and get some Calitris and plant Calitris wherever you can. On the other hand, if you're looking at most of the other cockatoos, you can't go wrong with your local she oak, but Casuarina or Allocasuarina tortuosa, littoralis, stricta, verticillata, and stricta, and glauca. Well, there's another one. They would be the ones that I would be looking for and plant them. They're quick growing, and you can grow them in combination with quick growing quick growing acacias, and they will flower and set seed at different times, and go for it there. Then Hakea and Banksias for Carnabies and other black cockatoos. For glossies, you've got to have Casuarinas. For yellowtail, black and Carnaby's, Banksia attenuata, Banksia menziesii were the two that were specially mentioned. I would throw in lots of other Banksias. Here on the East Coast, Banksia integrifolia, Banksia serrata, Banksia praemorsa, apart from attenuata, and then you've got menziesii, victoria, hookerana, lots and lots and lots and lots. Just try anything. Hakeas were mentioned. Woody fruit hakeas. I would not be looking at Hakea lorena. I don't see a lot of cockatoos. If you have seen differently, the pincushion hakea, if you have seen that being attacked by cockatoos, let me know. On the East Coast, Hakea sericea, often saw yellow-tailed black cockatoos getting into Hakea sericea cones, or nuts or fruits, whatever we want to call them. And we talked about acacias, macadamias, high-value big nuts. Macadamias are in the Proteaceae family, so you can grow them. And now that macadamias are a high-value horticulture / agriculture crop, there's lots of different varieties available, so you might be able to find a small one. Get into that. Janice is mentioning that cockatoos, sulfur cresteds in her area, like the agave attenuata. Gangangs, we did mention, love the introduced garden and indeed weedy cotoneasters and hawthorn bushes. So I will suggest that gangangs would probably like some of the syzygiums that are in the trade now, but they've got to learn that they're good. If they're not a food source that they have already tried, maybe if you have gangangs visiting in your area, maybe if you've got ripe syzygium or eugenia fruits on your plants, maybe put them on a tray with some seed, but cut them in half so they can try them out and decide whether they like them. Thanks for that, Loz. Saw what he did then. Thanks for that. I've got to get the vacuum out now, don't I? And the mop. So, yeah, that would be something I would say for encouraging. If you already have cockatoos and parrots visiting and you would like to introduce them to something new that you have in the garden, cut the fruits in half. If you have syzygiums or anything else that's fruiting, blueberry ash or billardieras, if you've got glycine climbers or any of the billardieras, offer them the fruits in amongst some that they already like, and see what happens. I think we've covered a fair bit today, right, squad, folks? Let's see, have we got anyone else on the Insta? No. I'm going to sign off. Loz is obviously looking for some more something more interesting to do. What will we do next time, folks? I emailed a couple of people about hollows. I do want to get an update on where the technology for hollows is, and I've reached out to a couple of people who build and market nest boxes and see if we can get an update on that. Naomi, thank you for the kind words. I'm glad you found it a useful. I I was a bit unsure about how to approach it. I would encourage you to look out if there are local groups that have information out for your area about what plants the cockatoos like. I would be just a little bit skeptical of those that are being very generic. I mean, as we just found from Mallee Conservation, I just want to see where. I'll just read a bit more about them. So Mallee Conservation has sort of come about to I think it's on one. It looks like private land, one or two properties, but it's about keeping or restoring habitat essentially for the regent parrot. Let's have a look. Just waiting for it to crop up. Fiona, Phil, and Emily. Obviously, a family. Just having a quick look. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to get them on to talk. Would be good, wouldn't it? So they're looking after the largest known population of a particular butterfly. They're doing re-veg, they're doing conservation fencing, and they're preventing buffel grass from establishing in Victoria. So obviously I need to get them on the show. Now they are, Naomi, you might be interested in the location. They are 60 kilometres southeast of Mildura, on the property that adjoins the northern end of the Hattakulkine National Park, and has parks on the park is on three sides of their property. Now, I've got to say, I've got a real soft spot for Hattakulkine National Park. I went there, the first time I went there was on a school camp when I was a kid, and I loved it. And I've been a fairly regular visitor right through the rest of my life. Lake Mournpool is one of my favourite places to camp. Also like the campsite at Little Lake Hatter. But yeah, I am going to look at Loz. I told you you'd go to sleep soon. I'll contact them and get them. Let's get them on the show, hey? Thanks, Naomi and Janice, for the Facebook love. Thanks for everyone. X, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. That was nice to have someone from Twitch on today, and Facebook, and Instagram. But I've got to say, I wish Instagram would make it easier and I could bring the comments in easier and everything. But yeah, anyway, goodbye, Instagram. You're going first. Instagram is gone. We'll just cancel Instagram. I need some more followers on Instagram, by the way. If you are not following, if you're not subscribed on YouTube, please go and subscribe on YouTube. That's the big aim for this year, to build up the YouTube following and to make it something a bit more useful. I'll let you know too, we had some talk about captive birds during the week. There's going to be a new offshoot of the Bird Emergency talking about bird husbandry from my point of view, and I'm going to interview people who have birds and talk about keeping birds and try and turn it into something a bit conservation-y and see if we can put a different spin on how that community thinks about birds. There we are. Loz is back into my beard. Good on you, Loz. That's it, folks. See you on Monday at around midday for Monday with me. I can't remember what I said we'd talk about, but it's going to be a bit more of a news roundup, looking for some more good news, but also some of the really important bad news stories that I've found. Yeah. Wow, I could just hear someone's phone ringing. Wasn't mine, was it? No. All right, folks. Monday. See you then. And I'll think about what we're going to do next week. And of course, Saturday morning next week, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We'll do habitat gardening again. We might talk about. How about we talk about pigeons and doves? What do you think of that? Pigeons and doves, getting them in the garden and what things that they need to feel comfortable. That will only be superseded if someone from the either Mallee Conservation or one of the Nest Box Artificial Hollow people says they're available, in which case I will change that. See you, folks. Been great spending Saturday morning with you again. Enjoy your weekend. Get out, do something, hit your nursery, or dig some holes, prepare some planting holes, or go and watch some birds. Hey, Loz, say goodbye.